Vertigo Nation, welcome back to another episode of Vertigo for the Hardcore. That's right. And we're adding video. Holy shit. What is going on? Vertigo is coming into the 21st century. Are we in the 21st century? Yeah, we're in the 21st century. See, it gets confusing because I was alive in the 20th century. And so I remember this. How did this work? Okay. So I had a teacher tell me that the century is always behind the no ahead always ahead of the year, right? Because in the 1900s it was the 20th century, and now we're in the 2000s and we're in the 21st century. Yes. Okay. Whew. So did 20th Century Fox had to change their name? Are they now 21st Century Fox? I don't know. These are the things that we talk about on Vertigo. So if you are new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also know that I am thankful that you have found me. You might not be thankful, but I'm thankful. And welcome video. We're doing video for this thing. So here's the deal. I noticed that I have a ton of people listening in on YouTube. Super appreciative. I got to get used to the whole camera thing. So bear with me. This episode might be a little fucked. It might not. I don't know. I'm not used to having the camera in my face. I got to admit, it's a little weird, but we're going to roll with it. Cause again, we now know we're in the 21st century. If you don't, never mind. We're in the 21st century, and I'm trying to bring Vertigo into the new century, even though the century is 26 years old now. Hey, listen, I'm consistently inconsistent, let me tell you. But we're coming up on 40 episodes. 40 episodes. No, we've surpassed 40 episodes of Vertigo. So to all of the listeners, thank you. And this is the crazy thing. I have watched this thing. We started out, there was like five of you, and I knew all five of you who were listening, and most of you have all been on the show at this point. And then we got to this point where we are now, and I can't even imagine who's listening. I mean, for example, right, Dr. Bagnall. If you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen to it. But Dr. Bagnall, South Florida, Miami, right? And we're doing a podcast with a doctor in Miami. Like, I would have never in a million years imagined Vertigo to get to that point. And so all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sorry about the white walls. I did a podcast called, I don't want to be effing sterile, right? And here I am. Well, there is a picture over there. But, you know, so bear with me. When I did the studio, I never really thought about video. And now I'm realizing that I got to think about video. And so we'll get there. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Please do it. You are not going to want to miss. This is the podcast that will make your head spin, guaranteed. Because I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. I am consistently inconsistent as a motherfucker. You're going to find that out. And actually, that's the topic for today. Well, so here's what happened. Let me in. Let you all the way in. So I was looking at my analytics, because things are just happening with Vertigo because of all of you who are tuning in and listening on the regular. So appreciative of that. I never like I honestly, you know, this is where this topic came from. So I guess I'm just going to jump right in. I am a perfectionist. I actually had a few therapists, counselors, whatever, tell me over the years, Sean, your problem is you're a perfectionist. And we're going to kind of talk about that, the curse of perfectionism. Um, but one of the things since starting Vertigo that I've done is, constantly and consistently watch kind of the numbers. And it's hard not to. I mean, because this is an art form. This is, for me, I enjoy putting this out. And as much as I can say that it doesn't matter if there's one or 10 people listening, it's exciting when you see something, your art form, growing and catching fire. And Vertigo has done just that. And so watching the the subscribers and the downloads and the listens just grow with each episode that gets dropped. It's really just like this really I can't even describe the feeling actually, but it's cool, you know. I just never imagined anybody really paying that much attention, I guess. But at the same time, you do it with the hopes of people paying attention, right? So anyway, but one of the things that I've absolutely struggled with in my life, and what Vertigo has almost kind of helped with, is that one I have been consistently inconsistent. My whole life is, I'm telling you, I am one of these people who starts and stops projects or stops and starts hobbies. I've had a million hobbies, and it's kind of weird because I'm definitely got that personality where you hand me a rope and I'm a cowboy, right? So I got into home brewing. I was a brewmaster, right? And that's just not the way that it works. But I have this problem with perfectionism. I want things to be what I see in the mind, you know. For example, I got into like I just said, got into doing the home brew, and for some reason, I thought like my first brew was going to come out like, you know, Goose Island or some shit. Like, I don't know, you know, come into like all of a sudden I was going to be like a microbrewer, right? And completely missing the point that like I really just was getting into it because it was something that I enjoyed. It was something to mess with. But it's like I go hard, man, and I take everything to like the nth degree. And so for me, it's like it's tough. I get into these hobbies and then it becomes not a hobby, it becomes a chore. But I make it that way. Like I completely agree that it's my fault that I do that. I somehow like get into this mindset where like it's got to be perfect. It's got to come out looking a certain way, tasting a certain way, whatever. And so when the product doesn't come out like that, I get immediately discouraged and then I just want to scrap the whole plan. And that's really crazy because nothing can be perfect right out the gate. Everything takes work. And I've even preached that to my kids. I'll be like, hey, listen, you know, you got to try it. Maybe because I want them to be different than me. I think that's, you know, I think all parents are like that. Like, you know, the truth of the matter is you don't want your kid to make the same mistakes that you make. And so you try to encourage them and coach them to make different, I guess, different choices or have, I don't know, to learn from the mistakes that I've made, right? You want to impart that knowledge on them. That's part of what being a parent is let me try to help you not do what I did, you know. But yeah, kids are always going to do it the hard way anyway, right? How many I have heard that from like I don't know how many parents like, yeah, my kids just got to do it the hard way. They do. That's how we learned. It's how they got to learn. It's just the nature of the beast, I think. So yeah, see now you get to see all the weird things that I do, like you know, scratching my. I'm always doing this, and I don't know. I don't pick my nose, which is probably a good thing, but I'm constantly like moving my glasses, my headphones, constantly adjusting. You're going to get to see all that stuff now because here we are on video. And I just want you to know in true Vertigo style, there's going to be nothing fancy about the video. You're going to see me doing this, you know. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully somebody likes that, I guess. And when I have a guest, obviously, we'll see. You'll get to see the guest. But I did try to record actually video with Dr. Bagnell, and it just went horribly south. I don't know if it's because I was the building that my studio is in. We had a really bad storm rolling in. I don't know if it was because that knocked out the internet, which I didn't know. So obviously during the recording, the internet hadn't fully gone down yet, but I guess this storm was coming and it was causing some problems. And so, or it was just me not understanding how to use the platform. I've switched over to using Riverside. I used to be real generic and just record the audio straight into GarageBand, you know, edit it and then release it. And now I'm trying something different. So, you know, trying to change with the times, man, trying to bring us into the 21st century. Hey, this is Vertigo for the Hardcore. If you're new here, if you just found me and you like what you're hearing so far, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you join me on the regular. You're going to get episodes weekly. Sometimes I do special drops. I just drop an episode midweek out of nowhere. Yeah, I'm fucking wild, man. It's fucking crazy. You're going to love it. This is the podcast that makes your head spin. And now you get to see that I really don't take myself that seriously, too, which is that might be the good thing. Arrogant bastard. Who are you talking to anyway? Why not? Consistently inconsistent. That's my whole life, man. I've been consistently inconsistent my whole life. But I really am thinking that what my bigger problem is, maybe these therapists that I spent all this money on over the years were fucking right. I'm a perfectionist at my core. And when you're a perfectionist, you self sabotage. Isn't that fucking weird how these things kind of go together? Like, hey, you're a perfectionist. It's like, I'm paying all this money because insurance is bullshit. That doesn't really pay. Like, we can talk about that on another episode, but let's be real, right? Nah, fuck it. You all know. You all know. You're all living this life too. But anyway, all this money in counseling and therapy over the years to all of a sudden get to this point that I probably would have got to because I'm hitting that age now where it's like I'm contemplating my life. Like I've got 50 years behind me. And that's so weird, man. It's like have speaking of 20th century, 21st century, and all that bullshit. I'm half a century old. Like, what the fuck? When did that happen? I have no idea. It's wild. I would have. It's weird. When I was a kid, I would have never thought that I would get here. Like I remember as a young kid, I don't know how I was old enough to play with a calculator. So whatever age that is, elementary school. When you learn how to spell hell, like and then you turn the calculator upside down. Ooh, yeah. But anyway, my big thing. I've always had this big thing with age. I've always had this fascination with how old people are for some reason, and I don't know why that is. I'm trying to figure out if this is my good side. Is this my good side? Is this my good side? I don't know. Just whatever. It's weird having the camera here, man. Sean, do you want to get back on the topic or what? Yeah, I suppose. What were we talking about? I don't know. Inconsistency. Oh, and perfectionism. Yeah. Um, I'm going to tell you right now that I completely have lost my train of thought, and yeah, so we're just going to start over. So this is Vertigo for the Hardcore. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, um, yeah. So perfectionism has been a real thing. I've paid all this money for therapy over the years to reach this spot in my life now where I'm like, wow. Now that I'm contemplating, like, I can see where being a perfectionist, has kind of hindered me in a lot of ways because I'll start a project and then it's not coming out the way that I see it in my mind. And then that's it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm wondering if I got that curse from my dad because I remember as a kid, like my dad would start a ton of home projects. We had decks in my backyard that were half built, never, never really anything came of them. So I wonder if it was just the grandiose, that's what perfectionism is, these grandiose ideas and thoughts, and I'm going to make this happen. And then we start to put it together. And when it's not coming together the way that we see it in our mind, we get frustrated and we just get the fuck it's. And it's just like, fuck it, not doing it, fuck it. So that's kind of the curse. But I did bring up on my phone um, the whole thing. Let's see here. Let's open up this whole AI. Perfectionism is the enemy of consistency. Well, Jesus, I can tell you that. Yeah, let me tell you. Because here's the thing, you're not going to be consistent if you're expecting perfect results because the results are never going to be perfect. You're never going to meet the goal. It's even out of the frame. It's that high, right? You're just not because you set up these standards for yourself that are just too high. That's what perfectionism is, right? Perfectionism, at least for me, and this is how it has been for me over the years in my life. Like I just set these unrealistic perfections. So, for example, when I got into home brewing, and I don't know what I was thinking, man, but as I'm home brewing, for some reason, I thought my first beer was going to come out and taste like, I don't know, Sam Adams or something, like some microbrew. I guess Sam Adams isn't a microbrew, but y'all are following me. You know what I'm talking about. I had this expectation in my head, and I don't know why. Now, beginner's luck is a thing. I think that if it did come out tasting like that, that would be great. But could I consistently then repeat that process? Um, it's just, and so the curse of the perfectionist is then, well, it didn't come out how I expected it. And so maybe you don't give up right away, you try again. But I don't know where this whole thought of like needing to be, first of all, what is perfect? I mean, some of the best inventions in our time have been completely by accident. We got a slushy machine at work, and the boss was fucking around with flavors, and he had a bunch of like shots left of flavor, so he just fucking mixed it up in a machine and let it go. Dude, it was the best flavor ever, completely by mistake. Like it wasn't didn't measure nothing. It was just like, hey, let's throw the passion fruit, the peach, and the mango in that fucking slushy machine and just let it rip. The flavor was fucking incredible. I drank way too many of those that day. Let me tell you, when you're a person who doesn't eat a lot of sugar, I've cut a lot of sugar out of my diet. And then all of a sudden you go in one day to work and you drink 3 or 4 slushies. Let me tell you about a bellyache, dude. Wow. Yeah. Perfectionism though, like it has been like the curse of my whole life, I think, and then I just started getting I so the other night I was thinking about what I wanted the topic for the episode to be, and I started thinking about consistency because I'm over 40 episodes now with Vertigo, which is so cool. I would I that's a that's a big thing for me personally. That's a big, because I did drop out for a little while. You'll see that, and listeners will know that I was doing Vertigo pretty consistently for, I don't know, 9, 10 months, and then just dropped off the face of the earth for a little while. Some of that was because I was going through some personal stuff. Yeah, I mean, whatever. But a lot of it is just my personality. I burned myself out as a person. Yeah, I was gonna say as an ADHDer, but I just think people do it in general. Like I go really in hard, and then I burn myself out, and that's a dopamine crash. Actually, by the way, if you want to know, see all these years of therapy, I might as well let me save you some money. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. To any of the therapists that listen, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, perfectionism has definitely been my problem and my curse. And so let me finish. Actually, why I don't know. Why don't I finish reading, right? Whatever. Um, Perfection is the enemy of consistency. I already talked about that, and it is so true. One of the reasons that I become inconsistent is because something didn't come out the way that I felt that it should have come out, and then for that reason, I then drop it and just don't follow through with it anymore. And that's not okay, but that is what it is. Um, and so um, Perfection is the enemy of consistency because it demands flawless execution. And there's just no way that that can be true. I mean, um, I saw a hypnotherapist, which that actually was probably one of the best decisions that I had ever made, was actually seeing a hypnotherapist. She was pretty incredible. And one of the things that she had talked to me about is that in the Native American culture, they actually celebrate those imperfections because you can't have art without imperfections. And our imperfections are what make us unique and individual. And that is true even in art. And, you know, we, so yeah, it turned a light on to the thought that like maybe celebrating the flaws, I never had thought about that before. Celebrating flaws. That was like a whole new concept for me. Like, wow, like I should accept my flaws. That was pretty like massive. Um, I still think about that to this day, like, wow, like accept your flaws, accept them because they're part of me and they're what makes me an individual. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't work on change, but partly change comes from accepting the flaws. Now that I accept that it's there, I have a decision to make, right? It always comes back to the eye opener for me. It's like once my eyes are open to something, then it's like the brain all of a sudden, like all the gears click in, click, 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 click. Now they're in sync, and it's like, oh, now I get it. Takes me a minute sometimes, I guess. You know, the trap of the perfectionist. So this is really what I wanted to talk about: the all or nothing thinking. That, my God, the all or nothing thinking. Oh, that's me. That is so me. Believing that a missed day or a small mistake ruins the entire effort, causing you to quit entirely. And that is so true. I've even experienced that honestly at work. You know, um, it's kind of the fuck it's is also what it's called. kind of just getting into that mentality of like, well, I already messed it up, so fuck everything. It's like that's really weird, right? But that's really what the curse of perfectionism is. Um, and I've quit a lot of hobbies because of that, which is crazy because we have to give ourselves some grace, right? But yeah, so the curse of the perfectionist, like quitting things before you even really get started because fuck it, you can't do it the way that you want to anyway. My phone locks, so let me unlock this so I can continue to read what I'm reading here. This is AI, by the way. This is just nothing fancy, but I like the summaries. AI makes it easy. Oh yeah, and one of the other things that I wanted to point out is becoming kind of paralyzed as a perfectionist. You then, I call it the stutter steps. You kind of don't get started. You put your own blockades in your way because you don't want to get started on something because you've done these things 101 times before in the past and they never come out the way that you think that they're going to come out. And so why get started? And so then we look like we're also what's that word? So you're all hollering at me now. Hey, this is the word that you're looking for. I want to say protagonist, and that's completely not the right word, man. Why is it? As soon as I get on the mic, my brain just goes bing. We're gonna forget the English language. And as a podcaster, I mean, that would be like a rapper forgetting how to rhyme. Like that would be career suicide. I mean, imagine that. All right, Eminem, get on the mic and spit your shit. Ready, go. Yeah, well, that's what happens. See, now people who don't have the video, you're going to be kind of fucked because now I'm doing things on the video that only the video people are going to see, and they're going to be getting the joke, and you're going to be going, "What the fuck is going on right now?" I guess you better watch the video. So yeah, perfectionism has been a thing my whole life, man. It's really been one of those things that's just a fucking pain in the ass because it puts up so many blockades, and I'm just starting to really realize this now. Like, being a perfectionist has really just been has been shitty. Yeah, because I've started and stopped so many hobbies and so many things, and it's also made me fearful to start new things. Yeah, so it's one of those things. Definitely need to get over it. Like it's just not doing me any good. So it's time to get rid of that. Yeah, so perfectionism. So yeah, I am consistently inconsistent, and I just need to accept that for what it is. Well, there you have it. You got the whole therapy session for free. Yeah. Well, there's no letters after my name, so be very careful. Anyway, what's on my playlist? I've had an interesting week. I've been all over the place. I've listened to some 80s rock this week. I've been listening to a little Warrant. Warrant, if anybody remembers Warrant, they sang, what was that song? Heaven isn't too far away. Yeah, Warrant. Down Boys. Yeah, they sang Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich. That's a mouthful. Anyway, I don't know how I ended up on the Warrant, you know, whatever train, but I started listening to Warrant, and that's what's been on my playlist. So I guess 80s glam rock, the hair metal thing, but definitely Warrant and Poison are the two bands that have been on my playlist pretty consistently this week. I've listened to a lot of Poison and I've listened to a lot of Warrant, which I actually just like in 2024, let's say 24, I went and I actually saw the stadium tour with Motley Crue, and it was Motley Crue. So the whole lineup was Joan Jett, Poison, Motley, Def Leppard. And I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, Poison stole the show. One. They were absolutely playing live. And you could tell because Brett Michaels was running all over the stage and he was out of breath. And you could tell when he was singing that he was trying to catch his breath as he said. So I like that, right? Live music is meant to be live, man. Like fuck ups included. It's meant to be live. That's the beauty of it. Like, yeah, you know, you're catching the vibe in the moment. This is what I was talking about in the life isn't meant to be sterile episode, like there's something about being able to, like, this is the and see, this is the perfectionist coming out and saying, let's be anti-perfection. Like if you're playing rock and roll music, man, it's meant to be like it's that Like, fuck, come on. Fuck up and miss that note. It's all right. It's live, you know? But Poison was great. And Def Leppard was actually incredible too, by the way. So, oh yeah, Indy's in the studio. So if you're hearing, she's not on the camera, but she's in the studio. So if you're hearing some background noise, that's her right now. She's always in the studio with me. That's my lab. She's awesome. Wherever I go, she goes. She likes to just. I would move the camera around, but never mind. So yeah, so Motley Crue. So I saw the stadium show, but and Warren wasn't there, so I don't even really know what sense this is making. But I've been listening to some Warren, and anyway, one of the songs that I absolutely think is just incredible. Actually, two songs. One, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is on their second album, Cherry Pie. So, and here's an interesting thing too. I ran across this interview with Jenny Lane, and he never wanted to actually record Cherry Pie. He actually was very angry with the record label because at that time the record label had a lot of muscle and they were going to tell the artist pretty much what you were going to do. And that was the time of sex, drugs, rock and roll, 80s glam metal, and they wanted a sex song, and so Warrant recorded Cherry Pie. And I didn't realize this, but Janny never wanted that song to be on the album or even released, and was really actually upset about it. He wanted to become a more developed songwriter, and one of the songs that he was most proud of was Uncle Tom's Cabin. And I can see why, because listening to it now through, older ears that don't hear so well. No, but it's a really well crafted song. Lyrically, it's really cool. It makes you think. It's actually based on a novel. But it has to do with the I don't know if it's actually during slavery or just during the Jim Crow laws, but it's cool. It's got a lot of cool messages in there. It's a really cool story. And then the other song on that same album is I Saw Red, which is a piano ballad. And again, another well written, well crafted song. So I feel like, Warrant needs to get a little bit of a shout out, even though it's way years too late. Their high has come and gone. But I'm pretty impressed. So it led me down the rabbit hole of obviously what's on my playlist, listening to Warrant, and then of course listening to other 80s acts. And then Poison comes into the mix. And I was listening to I think it was I think it was their third album. I can't remember. But anyway, it had Ride the Wind and Unskinny Bop on it and whatnot. But I started listening to that album, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, I've got some mad respect for that album too. So that led me down further rabbit hole. So there was an album. So CC DeVille, for all of my non-music fans, CC DeVille was the original guitar player for Poison. He left at one point because that shit happens in bands all the time. And in comes Richie Kotzen, who is a completely different style of guitar player than CC. CC was the epitome of an 80s guitar player with the flair and the quick runs up, whatever you imagine, like the Eddie Van Halen kind of guitar playing, right? That's what that's what that was. And then Richie Kotzen comes in, who's much more of, he's a rock and roller for sure, but he's much more rounded. He's got a little blues, a little jazz licks in there. He's a little different. And so Poison did the song Native Tongue. Yeah, Native Tongue, I think. And so anyway, it got me thinking, right? Because why wouldn't it? What other bands has Richie Kotzen been in? Because he did that one album with Poison. I think he did the tour following, probably would be my guess. And then I never heard of him. But anyway, I went into Apple Music and I typed in Richie Kotzen. That dude has like something like 40 solo albums. It's incredible. So I started listening to them, and he's actually incredible, which then led me to the Winery Dogs, and that's where I'm going to end what's on my playlist. The Winery Dogs. If you haven't, if you first of all, if you love, if you love rock music, like just straightforward rock and roll, nothing, not metal, not hard rock, not glam, like no label, just you know just good rock and roll music, man. Winery Dogs. It's Billy Sheehan on bass, who is a bass god from the 80s. And believe it or not, he is from, I think, Rochester or Buffalo, New York. So he's like right up the road, Central New Yorkers. For my Central New York fan base, like, Billy Sheehan is from close by. And then you had Richie Kotzen on guitar, and then you had Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater on drums. So it was a power trio, kind of celebrating the bands like Cream, who else? ZZ Top, right? Some of those bands that were just incredible trios. And the Winery Dogs are absolutely incredible. And so there's what's on my playlist. So yeah, let's dipping and dabbling into some of the 80s music. Like I said, Warrant, Poison, which led me down the whole rabbit hole. Got to be careful what hole you're journeying down. There are certain holes you just don't want to journey on, like manholes. You don't really want to find yourself around that, you know. But internet rabbit holes, I guess, depending. I've read some interesting conspiracy theories. That might be a new part of Vertigo that's coming up. I might do what's on my playlist, followed by a segment of what conspiracy theories have I heard or am I following that I find completely interesting. And there are some wild ones out there. One of them is has to do with Tesla. And I don't have all the facts and information like propped right now, but I've been doing some reading on Tesla. And was it JP Morgan was going to fund him, but he ended up funding Thomas Edison instead. And there's this whole, so I've got to, and some of you might know better than me. You can write it in the comments if you've got anything to say about that. But I might be doing, I'm toying with this idea of doing, not, switching what's on my playlist one week and then maybe doing conspiracy theories that I've gone down the rabbit hole in it. Cause that's great ADHD shit, man. When you go down the rabbit hole, like for example, I was reading about the World's Fairs and there's this whole theory that the World's Fairs were really about dismantling these like ancient um, buildings and architecture in America because they were trying to hide the fact that we had ancient civilization here. Like it's fucking wild stuff, man. Definitely worth talking about. And I'm sure that there are tons of podcasters and stuff who are already doing it. So I don't want to take a whole show and do it, but I'd love to do a segment on it because I'm reading this stuff going, this is fucking wild. This is great. So that's just my opinion. Virgo Nation, first first podcast with video. We did it. We made it through a segment. That's incredible. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this podcast made your head spin because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for it. This is your ADHD podcast host, letting it rip, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. That's what Vertigo for the Hardcore is all about. Yes, people. Yes, people. So if you have not yet hit that subscribe button, I'm going to tell you, go ahead and hit it now. Like, matter of fact, I'm only ready. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Go ahead. I'm just going to do. Okay. If you have hit that subscribe button, thank you. For all my regular listeners, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Vertigo for the Hardcore. And again, I hope this episode made your head spin. Peace.